Hi everybody, Mrs. Bullen here, and we're going to look at guided notes standard 21 and 22, area and parts of figures, day 2. And in this video, we'll look at triangles. Let's first talk about the parts of a triangle, and we have a figure here to help us talk about it. A triangle has to have a base, and in this figure, our base, we'll say, is going along the bottom of the triangle here. There's my base. And the other part of the figure is called the height. This is the other piece we have to identify, the height, or you could also call it the altitude. The height or the altitude. And this height is perpendicular to my base. Perpendicular, meaning this 90-degree right angle is showing that my height or my altitude is perpendicular to my base. So we can make a note here that our base and our height must be perpendicular. I'm going to use the perpendicular symbol here. Base and height must be perpendicular, meaning when we're looking for the measurements for our base and our height, we have to be looking for the measurements of the two parts of my triangle that form this 90-degree right angle. We could label if we like. Here's our base, and here's our height. Base and our height of the triangle. We're going to talk about area of a triangle. And if you recall, area of a figure, we said is the flat surface inside the figure. And when we've previously talked about rectangles, we said area of a rectangle is base times height. So if you were to imagine this triangle here was a rectangle and we had our base and our height, the rectangle would have to look something like this. I do a quick little sketch, and you would do base times your height if it was a rectangle. But notice this triangle isn't taking up the same flat surface as a rectangle would. So for area of a triangle, we can't just do base times height. And actually, a triangle ends up taking up half the amount of space as a rectangle would. So half of the flat surface of a triangle. So we could say that area of a triangle, capital A for area, is going to be 1/2 times our base times our height. There are a couple other ways you could represent this. You could say area equals base times height divided by 2. So you could do base times height as if it was a rectangle and then divide it by 2. If you like decimals, I guess you could also do area equals 0.5 base times height. These are all ways of representing the same thing. I'm going to use this first formula, area equals 1/2, and then I'll do times my base times my height. When you're using your calculator, I actually like using the 0.5 in my calculator. So when I'm plugging numbers in, I'll often do 0.5 base times height. But when I'm writing it, I like to write the 1/2 base times height as a reminder for us that you're really looking at area of a rectangle, and it's half of that because it's a triangle. Let's look at some problems to see if we can visualize how this works. So in example A, we are asked to find the area of the figure. And right away, let's identify our different pieces. So this 12 yards here is one of the sides here that's forming the right angle. So notice right away my eyes went to this square tick mark, my 90-degree right angle. I need to find that square tick mark. And I'm going to do my base here. Here's my base. And then the other side that's forming the 90-degree right angle would be right here, the 4.6 yards. That's going to be my height. Notice I do have other dimensions on this triangle, and I'm not going to need to use them. These are just other side lengths, right? There's 3 sides in a triangle. So 11, 12, and 5 yards, those would be if I was like adding up the perimeter or the distance around the triangle. But for my area, I'm always doing 1/2 base times height. And in order to identify base and height, I have to find the right angle. So here's the right angle. The 2 sides that form the right angle, those are my base and my height. So my formula here is area equals 1/2 base times height. And again, I just highlighted my base and height for you to kind of emphasize them. They are the two sides that form my right angle. So I'm doing 1/2 base times height. I can plug in the values. So area equals 1/2 times my base of 12 times my height of 4.6. And then I can go to my calculator. I can type 0.5 times 12 times 4.6, or I could type 12 times 4.6, and then once I get an answer, I could divide it by 2. Once I do that, I get my final area, which is 27.6. And I do need to consider units here. So for my total area, keep in mind, we're doing base times height, or yards times yards. So we have square yards as our unit. Area is always units squared. So there's my final answer. Let's look at example B. And example B is a little bit more confusing to look at, because here's actually the triangle that we are trying to find the area of, what I've highlighted here. And these here, if you look closely, these are little dashed lines extending outside of my figure to help you find the right angle and to help you identify which two sides form your base and your height. So again, I'm doing area equals 1/2 base times height, and I need to identify those in my triangle. So my base and my height are the two sides that form the right angle. So my base here is going to be the 7 yards, and my height is actually right here, is outside of the figure, right? It's the 4.3 yards. That's going to be my height that I need to plug in. So I have identified those values. Again, they're the two sides that form the right angle. This 12 yards is just another side length of the triangle. So I can now plug in my base and my height. Area equals 1/2 times my base of 7 times my height of 4.3. I can plug that into my calculator. And for my area, I'll get 15.05. And we did for area yards times yards. So we'll have yards squared for a final answer. This time you have 2 U-tries, so go ahead, pause the video and see what you get. On U-try 1, my base was 9 and my height was 3.1. So my final area was 13.95 square meters. And on U-try 2, you had to be careful. I was trying to find the area of this triangle. So this is the flat surface, or the area inside the triangle. And these are dashed or dotted lines extending outside of the triangle to help you find the right angle. The right angle is where your base and your height meet. So that means my base is 4 and my height is 9.4. So plugging that into my area formula, I get to 18.8 square meters.